G'day, guys, and welcome to the Centre Bounce, where today we'll be talking about the much dreaded forward line in our power rankings. Stay tuned. I put power rankings, Big J, in quotation marks because there's nothing powerful about this line, unfortunately, this year.
Yeah, it really feels like outside of Jack McCrae, every single player that was good last year is now a midfield only, and we're kind of stuck. I mean, that's kind of why the trend at the moment we're seeing is a lot of people just stacking the forward line with mid prices, kind of picking those other players, maybe a Sam Flanders, who we'll talk about in a little bit, but I don't think anyone's really playing any premiums this year.
Yeah, no, I think that's the way I'm going to go. Last year, I sort of felt really keen to be very heavy in the forward line,
Mm.
which turned out to be the meta play. But this year, I think the meta play is to just go a bit cheaper in there, bolster up the other lines and just try and focus on cash gen and some decent points in the best 18 buy rounds.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go as well. Really just wait for those DPPs and be like, hey, first week, get them in, that's it.
Well, without further ado, we'll talk about our players. Do you feel like going backwards again with this one, or do you feel like going with number one?
Yeah, let's go number one.
Very well. Number one, we're going with the tried and true Jack McCrae. Look, he's got the history. He's the only one in the forward line that has the sustained history of continued good scores.
Yep.
But he also has a lot of big question marks over his head playing for Luke Beveridge and whether or not he will have a good role. Bloody hell, I was stuck here with him.
Well, that's kind of what we saw last year, wasn't it? He didn't have that great role, ended up playing a lot of forward line, which is why he's still selectable for us in the forward line. But yeah, it really, really hurt us, hurt him. I'm not sure if you had him towards the end of the season, but I definitely did, and was not happy with his kind of first quarter scores of a 35, and then the rest of the game he scored a 60. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to start him too. He's a juicy price though for a keeper.
And we're not the only ones. This is one of the most polarizing selections, a bit like Nick Dacos. 52%. So it's almost a split right down the middle to start Jack or not. So we're all in a similar boat and we're all keenly watching the preseason. There is absolutely nothing being said positively or negatively about Jack McCrae's role coming into this year. There's nothing being said about harms either, other than he's an experienced player. Well, no shit, but like, what role is he going to play? Is he any good? What's Jack McCrae going to do? Is he doing any good? Nobody knows.
Yeah, their midfield definitely struggled a little bit with the loss of Dunkley, and Bevo's still trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah. We'll move to number two, and we've got Sam Flanders, who really did a number on all those people who traded him out early in the year. He came back flying.
Feels like there's a lot of players last year that really happened to as well. Flanders, I think Warple did it a little bit. A few of these other guys, I think even Bose at one point, Joe. Last year, we saw some massive scores in the second half of the season. It looks like Dimmer's probably going to end up playing him in the same position. And he went from in 2022 averaging a 46 to now an 88. So the scoring's definitely there. He has popped out a 120. He has popped out a 130 before. And then a few picks in the 110s as well. So yeah, in the depleted forward line, we don't get a lot of options. I know a lot of people are starting Sam Flanders hoping for that 110 average. And if he does go off and you don't own him, he's going to hurt trying to have to bring him in.
Especially for that price point under $500,000. It's very rare to get a sub 500 primo for the season. And I have done a spotlight video on Sam Flanders on the channel. So if you haven't watched that, head on over and give that one a watch also. But yeah, Sam Flanders, I think, is probably going to be a lot of people's F1s if they don't go with Jack McCrae. He is at 36% ownership. I know people are keeping a close eye, and they get the free look at round 0 to see exactly what role he will have playing under Dimmer Hardwick.
Yeah, I think so. Next up on our list is a player who has come out a bit of nowhere and could be a viable option for a few people. That is big Luke Jackson. We saw how well his scoring was last year without Sean Darcy in the team. And it really feels like Jackson might be touted a little bit more for that ruck forward role, but potentially for some mid-time as well. He is super mobile. He's really our only viable ruck forward in a year or in a season or a game where there's always been one or two every year. Is he in your calculations, Joe?
He's We're thinking about him. I have done a spotlight video on Luke Jackson as well. So if you haven't watched that one, check that one. But yeah, in that video, we can see that, I mean, without Sean Darcy in the side, if he's the primary ruck, he's averaging 30 points more than when Sean Darcy is without. So certainly he is certainly capable of reaching some tremendous heights, of course, as a ruckman. And we don't really have too many ruckmen available to us in the forward line. We don't have Darcy, we don't have English, we don't have Gawn, we don't have Grundy. So he is one of those rare occasions where we can get a ruckman in the forward line. And historically, it's always been the more ruckmen you can have in your side, the better, because they have been very great on the scoring front for us.
Yeah, I think so as well. So, DPP really helped us out early with those first 3 or 4 bye rounds as well, where he doesn't miss, he plays, and you've got a Gawn, a Grundy, and a couple of others who are missing out.
Yeah, exactly. We then move to number 4. It is also number 4 on this list. It is, of course, Shai Bolton, who is seemingly getting a bit of traction. He's in 7% of teams at the moment. He's scheduled to play a bit more midfield time around the ball. Dusty Martin's going to be playing more half forward. He won't be playing around the ball as much anymore. You'd expect with the natural progression of Shai Bolton, that energetic, dynamic player. They've got some plotters in the midfield, like Taranto and Hopper, and Prestia, who are more contested. Then you've got the dynamic, exciting Shai Bolton. You need to have some outside mid type of players, and I think he fits that bill perfectly.
Yeah, and as you say, right, with Uze coming in and kind of a lot of changes happening at that club, Bolton's probably one of the few who is the right age to kind of take a lot more of that midfield time. He's got fantastic bursts through there. And when he does play through there, when he does score well, then the team does really well. So I don't think Richmond's going to be on the bottom of the ladder for long, but Bolton has the way to, he has the skills to be able to push them up and cover those amazing games and carry them when he needs to.
Yeah, and being a round 0 player, we also get to see how he lines up against the Suns. So again, we get a free look into him, and we see how well he pops off. If he pops off really strongly, can really be a bit of a tantalizing option for a lot of people. We then move to number 5 on our list, and it is Charlie Kernahan, who you're really bullish about.
Yeah, I just think Carlton's getting better, and Kernahan's going to kick a lot more goals. We've seen kind of Taylor Adams. We've seen Tex Walker not Taylor Adams. We've seen Taylor Walker. We've seen, what's his name from Geelong, Joe? Key forward.
Tom Hawkins,
that's who I'm thinking of. These key forwards, there always really does seem to be 1 or 2 in that kind of top 8 mark. And that's just because they have those massive games. Yes, there might be a good game where a key defender comes on Charlie Kernahan and really shuts him down. But he's going to have games where he plays in North Melbourne, a West Coast, some other games where he just pops out a 140 like no one's business. He's very capable of kicking 6 to 7 goals. And I think Carlton are going to need him to do something like that if they want to push hard into the finals like they did last year.
Exactly. So he is an early buyer player, which is a little bit unfortunate, and why not too many people might be keen to start him. He is in 4% of teams, so other people got their eyes on Carlton making a rise up the ladder, which obviously would include a Charlie Kernahan, maybe another Coleman medal. Who knows? That would put him in rare air, that's for sure.
If he does that, he's definitely going to end up being top 3, top 4.
Well, he's currently 3rd amongst this list of current forwards at the moment, so not surprising why. We then get to number 6, and it is a bit of a scroll down, so I won't bother. It is Zack Fisher, who's moved across from the Blues to North Melbourne. He is going to be playing in that half-back position. He's currently in 9% of teams. I anticipate if he can get through the rest of this preseason unscathed, that his ownership is likely to increase, I think. We've seen a lot of, I suppose, great scores coming out of North Melbourne halfbacks over the last few years. And I have also made a spotlight video on Zack Fisher, if you haven't seen that one.
Yeah, we know how well forward-eligible players in Supercoach who are playing half-back at North Melbourne do, just because the ball's going to be down there so often. There is a bit of a hamstring issue at the moment. He was cleared, which is fantastic, but having awareness this early into the preseason is not great. But
No.
Aaron Hall was a keeper for the most part. Harry Sheasel was definitely a keeper last year. And then Jack Zeeble, most people had for multiple years playing the same position in a similar type role. So if Fisher can kind of nail that down, I really think he could be potentially top 6.
We got him on 6 on the dot.
We
then move to number 7. It is Mr. Helmet himself, Caleb Daniel. His big caveat on that one is if he is playing a halfback distributor role over there at the Bulldogs. If he's able to do that, then we can see him average around 90 odd, which could put him here around this mark. But of course, he plays for Bevo, and who knows what Bevo is going to do week upon week.
Yeah, Bevo, and he's like, mate, those magic whiteboards with all the numbers and all the positions on it. Every week, Caleb Daniels in the midfield, Caleb Daniels in the forward line, Caleb Daniels playing ruck, Caleb Daniels on the bench with the water. So yeah, it's a funny one. Hopefully, like Bevo pulls his head out and actually works it. So Daniel has done premium level scoring before, so hopefully that happens again.
And it's possible that he could get back to that role. I know there was one match sim, and I know this might seem crazy that we're basing a lot of this on one match sim, but Ed Richards was playing in the midfield, running rings around people. So if Ed Richards is not in the back line, it could mean more ball for Caleb Daniel to share with Bailey Dale as distributors off halfback. So who knows or dares to even dream when it comes to what Bevo does. I don't even think he knows what he's doing half the time.
Yeah, I think so too.
Final player to round it up.
It'd be a bit hard to be a Dogs fan at the moment.
Oh, very hard. Very hard. Final player on this list. You might call us crazy.
Yep.
But Harley Reid.
It's an interesting one, right? We know how well Matt Rowell did as a number 1 pick. We know how dominant Sam Walsh was. Sheasel definitely was around the mark. Cadman, not so much, but we kind of know which one was the number 1. These players who are playing this early, well, even Dacos as well, these players who are playing this early kind of halfback role just so they can get their body fit and get some match time. We know that Zack Fisher, if he gets halfback at North Melbourne's going to be well. Harley Reid could definitely be that player as well. And he's already starting to dominate trainings at West Coast. Plays the distributor role, plays 23 games. I'm not surprised if this guy makes us our 250K easy, but potentially could end up 500K in a keeper for most people for the whole year, which is bonkers at 200K in a first-year player.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not unheard of for first-year rookies in the system to be keepers for us. Obviously, we saw that with Sheasel last year. We've had that with Nick Dacos the year before that, where you could have realistically held Dacos for the whole year from start to finish. So Nick Martin also was one who did incredibly well, eventually had a bit of a role change towards the end of the year, and you probably should have traded him out. But for about maybe 3/4 of the season, Nick Martin was a viable on-field option. So we've had first-year players in the AFL system perform really well for most of, if not all, the year. And as you mentioned, Harley Reid, he's playing that distributor role of halfback. He didn't play that as a junior, but he has had exposure to that role playing in the VFL. I know he had a couple of games playing with Essendon's VFL, and that's where we played him at halfback, and he served and he did quite well. So if he's going to be there with the occasional odd stint in the midfield to get that development into him, can't see a reason why this guy can't perform really well and be a really serviceable F8 for the rest of the season.
Yeah, most people are starting him on field as well, so it's probably a good indication of where his scoring's at if we're comfortable doing that.
Absolutely. We then get to the honourable mentions part, and it's very hard to imagine that there could be anything honourable about this forward line, but we have got 4 names that could be pushing that top 8.
Yeah, so we've got Dusty Martin, ever faithful. Every year it's Dusty Martin time. Richmond supporters love him. Probably should have ended up at Gold Coast this year, but it is what it is, right?
It is what it is. He's not going to be playing around the ball as much anymore. He is getting older. The Dusty of old is probably best suited now to be a really dangerous target close to goal, as is Tobias Green, Toby Green, an ever dangerous threat. He's got incredible high IQ. And if we anticipate the Giants to do well again this year, it's surely got to involve Toby Green.
Yeah, I think so as well. He's got the ability, like a few other players, that can just take the game on. there is going to be games during the season where Toby Green will score 60 points. And then there'll be games where he scores 130 because he's had 3 or 4 goals and potentially some contested possessions, a couple of free kicks for or against. We know how well Toby Green loves those. So, yeah, one to watch there.
One that holds him back is his suspensions. If we can get clean and away from bumping umpires or kicking people's faces.
Kicking people in the face, yeah.
Mitch Owens doesn't kick people in the face. Mitch Owens beats people fair and square.
Yeah, and from all reports in the preseason, he's put on, 10 kilos and is looking like a player who's probably been 2, 3, 4, 5 or more years into the system on what he has. In his first year, he popped out a few hundreds playing that midfield role. Last year, got thrown into the forward line and ended up just dominating. Played a bit of ruck as well, so multifaceted type player. And looks like this year that he's going to be doing a bit of forward, a bit of midfield for St Kilda. Definitely one to watch over the preseason. And he's only, 440K. So there is some potential value there, and you could get a keeper for very cheap.
Absolutely. And no early buy. This one player, though, does have an early buy in Taylor Adams, who you get to have a free look at again in round 0. He was in Collingwood's best 23 before, unfortunately, not being healthy enough to play in that grand final. He moves across to the Swans with his good mate in Grundy, who they have his history together and they've got a connection. So you never know. We might end up seeing a Grundy tap down to Taylor Adams a lot of the times. Whether or not he can stay fit enough and to play out the whole season is another thing to, I suppose, keep an eye on. But if he can be fit, I wouldn't be surprised if an inside mid rounds out our top 8.
Yeah, he is competing with a few other players, though. James Jordan, definitely for one. And there are a couple more on that Sydney list that have either come across or kind of developed through the system as well. So you've got Sheldrick. I think maybe Jake Rogers or one of the Rogers boys in there as well. So a lot of competitions. I don't know if his legs. Yeah, I don't know if his legs can really hold up there.
I think they're gonna. I mean, they wouldn't have picked them up for nothing. They're going to play him this year. I think they're going to play him as much as they can this year. It doesn't hurt to give their young players a bit more development. It is a very contested side to break into, and I wouldn't be surprised if James Jordan plays a bit more wing than he had initially anticipated because he made the move before Taylor Adams made the move. So sorry, Taylor Adams. Sorry, James Jordan. I think you're going to be second behind Taylor Adams in that discussion, but only time will tell, and we do get a look at him in round 0.
Guys, let us know what you think. Is Joe and I kind of talking nonsense, or are some of these players in your teams? Are you just holding out for DPP, wishing round 7, because it's round 7 this year, wishing round 7 kind of would hurry up and come through so you can actually upgrade some players in that forward line? Or are you kind of happy with where things sit?
I can't believe we've spent almost 18 minutes talking about this deplorable forward line. Like, honestly, you give us anything to talk about and we can do it. So I won't make this go any longer. If you like what you heard from us today, please drop us a like. We'd greatly appreciate it. And if you're new, a subscription will greatly help the growth and flourishing of our channel, which we are absolutely relishing, whatever the word is, very much so with your presence.
And remember, guys, we've got our Supercoach League running this year as well, where you can win some amazing prizes. One for being the highest ranked player, another one for, having the highest score, and then one just for turning up. So stay tuned for those. I'll put the link down in the description to the video. All the information's in there for you.
Absolutely. Make sure you hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on any of the content that we have pumping out to you, because here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard work so that you don't have to. We'll see you all in the next one.
Catch you guys.